President Obama will not pay for it. They'll recognize if they've passed this bill as is, they've got to do something to let people see something positive happen. So my guess is immediately they're going to start adding people to Medicaid. They're going to start adding people to the government program. Why? Because it's simple. You can do it very, very quickly. And that's what you did in Massachusetts.
Right, and that's what Nancy Pelosi is talking about. She said if once we kick this door down, then you're going to see lots of legislation going through.
Yeah, we saw it. We're seeing it happen. Almost 100,000 people, in order to expand coverage, were dumped right into Medicaid.
Well, this has been cheery. Thanks, guys. Counting on the American people again. Best of luck.
Thanks for having me.
I can't tell you how important these next 48 hours are.
I know.
Got to get out.
I know. America, we've been telling you know this, but you have to tell your friends, and if you're anywhere in the Washington, D.C. area, and if you're not, go to your local congressman's home office and plant your butt there and don't leave. Make sure they understand you have a very long memory, and you will do everything you can to defeat them. Back in just a second. This is a critical weekend for the Republic, and you do play the role. History is being made this weekend. What part will you play? The Obama administration has been doing wheeling and dealing on this. I find it interesting that with the Bret Baier interview this week that the president didn't deny that there was bribes going on. He just sounded like he was saying, yeah, well, look at what we're getting done. The wheeling and dealing that is going on is about to get truly sickening. I mean, first you have Air Force One ride for Congressman Dennis Kucinich. All right, I've seen that before, but how about this one? Now Republicans say the administration is buying votes with water. If this isn't a shadow of things to come, I don't know what is. The San Joaquin Valley in California has been suffering drought conditions in part because of the Delta smelt. According to environmentalists, this little smelt was being hurt because there's too much salt in the water where it lives. So billions of gallons of water have been diverted away from this fish, but also away from California farms. Now, in a completely unrelated story, unrelated from healthcare, the Department of Interior says some of this water will be released, but they're going to release it in the districts of Congressman Jim Costa and Dennis Cardoza. The Republicans now are pointing out this is kind of interesting because these Democrats were potential swing votes on health care. Congressman Devin Nunes, Republican from California, has sponsored a bill that would open the pumps to all of the valley. Congressman, can you tell me, these two congressmen, are they getting water for their vote? Is that what's happening here?
Well, I think it's kind of worse than that. What you have to look at is we're only getting 25% of our water for 100% of their health care bill. So, you know, when you look throughout history, Glenn, it's important to note out that there are a couple examples, recent examples, one being Saddam Hussein, who starved his people of water, and Robert Mugabe, who currently starves his people of water. So we have 129% rainfall this year in California. And what the Obama administration did is they upped the ante from 5% to 25%. Now, what makes this questionable is that normally this announcement would come at the end of March. But for some strange reason, they announced it 2 days ago.
And it's in the district of these two congressmen. Why would they only release the water there instead of all of the farmers in California?
Well, the point is not that it's just district specific. It's the entire San Joaquin Valley that's impacted, including my area. But what they're doing is they're only giving us just a quarter turn on the spigot. So it's not like they're opening up the spigot and letting the water flow. In fact, what they're doing is they're continuing to hold the San Joaquin Valley hostage. But the timing of their announcement that, oh, we feel for you and we're hearing your concerns and we're going to give you a little bit more water. And they announced it a couple weeks prior to what they were supposed to normally announce it, and just happens to be before this important health care vote where there's two Democrats who are my neighbors and my friends, but you have to question the timing of this announcement.
Have you talked to these two congressmen?
Well, I've talked to them plenty of times, and I think the problem is...
Have you talked to them about this particular case?
Constantly we've talked about this case, but Glenn, you were just recently in California.
Yes.
And you know what this is really about is it's about San Francisco and Hollywood. When you look at the characters that run this country right now, when you look at Nancy Pelosi, George Miller, Henry Waxman, these are people who were elected before I was born. And they have had this vision for America, this socialist utopia that they want to create that started in California. And when you look at the San Joaquin Valley, we're what happens when you create a socialist utopia like it's been done in California. The people of my district pay for it.
Let me take you, let's start there here when we come back. Just a little bit more here in just a minute. Back with Congressman Devin Nunes from the San Joaquin Valley in California, where suddenly two Democratic congressmen may be flipping their votes and vote for health care. In a completely unrelated story, their districts are going to be getting water now from the federal government. The federal government has decided to open up some of the valves of the San Joaquin Valley to be able to let some water in there for the farmers, but about 25% of the water is going to be opened up. Congressman, you know, you said before we went into the break, you said, you know, these are the things that are, this is what happens when you have the socialist utopia of Nancy Pelosi starting to be extrapolated over the entire country or in San Joaquin Valley. Tell me exactly, so people who don't know what's happening, what are the ramifications of these policies?
Well, when you go back to a lot of these characters go back to the 1960s. And they started in San Francisco politics, and they created a machine out in California where they gradually put in these radical environmental regulations. And so when you go back to the 80s, they began to turn off the logging industry. And then they started to turn off our water in 1992 with the bill that was passed in Congress before the Republicans took over. Last year, they took a bunch more water out. And then finally, they brought a devastating lawsuit that essentially shut the water virtually completely off to where we have a year like this year where we have 129% rainfall. And we're going to only get 25% of our water.
Okay.
And so what happens is, in the San Joaquin Valley right now, Glenn, it's 20% unemployment with some communities at 40% unemployment. This is coming to the rest of America if people don't watch out.
I'm concerned because I've said for a while that Cass Sunstein, I think, is one of the most dangerous men in America, because this is his kind of work where he just turns the valves here and there, and before you know it, as a regulation, all of a sudden you're in trouble to save the Delta smelt or whatever. But this goes so far beyond. When I saw that we're playing these games and we are playing with water now and food, that you know, you said it. Let me phrase it this way. What do you mean by saying Mugabe and Hussein are the ones that did this? Are you comparing this kind of activity in the United States government now to those guys?
Yes, I'm not. It's a direct comparison because it's true. They've shut our water off. It's the Garden of Eden, the most productive farmland in the world in the San Joaquin Valley. If anybody eats peaches, plums, nectarines, almonds, pistachios, they all come from this region. And they've cut the water off. Over the last 20 years, they gradually cut it off, and now they finished us off. And now to buy a couple votes, they give us 25% of our water as if we're supposed to be happy. It's like kicking your dog and not feeding it for 3 weeks and throw us a couple crumbs and think that now everything's okay. They think from here in Washington, they can control the masses. That's what they're doing to the San Joaquin Valley of California. It's resulted in 20% unemployment. Congressman,
thank you for continuing to stand up. Keep fighting. Keep fighting. We'll be right back.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thomas Paine said, "These are the times that try men's souls." It's America is changing. America is changing, but I'm glad you're here. And keep standing up. Next week, we're going to be in Orlando on next Friday with a live studio audience from Orlando, and then the American Revival there in Orlando on Saturday. We'll see you Monday. God bless. From New York, good night, America.
Next on Special Report, the House rolls on toward a Sunday vote on health care reform. We'll look at the bill. The deal